Good morning, everyone in the States. Good evening in other parts of the world. My name is Paul Beyer, and we are at GenAI Insights AI Daily Briefing, where we bring you news about enterprise AI rated essential, important, or optional for the time-starved AI leader and vendors. We have our great set of analysts as usual here, and we've got a few articles to kick us off. Ankaj, you want to kick us off the first one, please?
Sure, Paul. Okay, so the first one that we have for today comes from Financial Times, and it talks about how the AI-powered coding apps have pulled in 1 billion of funding, and they are claiming to be killer app status.
Tim, we talked a little bit about this yesterday with Cursive from Any Sphere. What's your view on this particular article? Tim, you're on mute, I think.
Yes, I rated it as optional. If you want, if you're looking for good research on investment, this is not bad and coverage of the space. But yeah, it doesn't say anything that's new. This is old news at this point that coding is, if not the top application, one of the 2 or 3 top applications of generative AI.
Yeah. Any disagreements, Luda, Adam?
No, but the article raises a question of monetizing this particular trend and trying to balance what was invested to the returns, and that's still an open question of how it will get monetized. But it highlights that certain products in the space save a lot of time. 20, 30, 40% of time in coding tasks. So it's certainly a trend, and a good trend at that.
Yeah.
And Paul, you notice after the Learning Lab, we were talking about Anysphere, right? You see Anysphere there again in this article. And I actually just saw a piece of news on Forbes, like a feature piece on Anysphere as well. So they're making a big marketing push. I don't think it's accidental that they're so very much in the news riding this wave.
Yeah, no, I think that, whoever their PR team's doing a great job here. And now, anecdotally, after the Learning Lab last night, I sent that video of the 8-year-old girl coding to like 8 architects I know who are deep into coding. 3 of them had already heard about it and are trying. The other 3 watched the video and said, "Holy crap!" and immediately sent it to their teams here. So it's starting to catch fire in the IT world. So optional for now. I brought my Nothing Burger back, and if it still shows up, Nothing Burger. So next one, please. Okay.
Okay, the next one comes from AWS, and in this article, they talk about how sales teams at AWS are using GenAI solutions built on Amazon Bedrock.
Yeah, this article is assigned to me. I have this as optional, although I love GenAI use cases for sales. I think it's absolutely a no-brainer from an ROI standpoint, and we have been working with a handful of companies on GenAI sales training. But this is an article from a vendor and how they're using it, tools. But kudos for them to keep getting the word out, because as of 6 months ago, there were no GenAI for sales training. We had one of the first ones, or maybe the first one in the marketplace.
Yeah, I was vacillating between optional and important, and let me make a case for important. It is a very comprehensive article. It goes through how do you structure this type of application, what to take into consideration. It ends with the best practices that they've encountered. It's a pretty deep and broad article it's a use case. I think it's certainly for AWS, it's a must to know and read, but it generalizes very well. And this is one of the applications that everybody is trying. So I just, especially if you've been in enterprise sales, you know how difficult it is to put all the information at your fingertips to really talk to a customer with some depth, right? So it is one of the very important applications, and I think that, and it's a very good read. So I suggest we consider important.
Oh.
I can go with important, and because I was on the border as well. I can't. The issue is for an AI leader. Since I'm one, I can sort of speak to it at one level. This is not what I would spend my time reading for work directly. Like this is not, an essential read for sure. But for a weekend read, maybe we need another category, which is important weekend read, because it's a long article. But it is, and it's a vendor article. So as you said, Paul, take it with a grain of salt. But they did a great job of going through the incredible detail of exactly what they did, exactly how they set things up, exactly how they optimize things. So it's, if I'm a leader, what I'd probably say is if I've got developers, I really want them to read this. But it's a one case, it's a one-off. So we don't know how well this generalizes, but it's really good in these early days to have something that is this detailed and transparent. I think that, you do have to give Amazon a little bit of a pat on the back to say, okay, they really did open the kimono and show exactly how they set this thing up. But it's such a long article.
I was going to say it in hearing what Luda was saying in the case for important as well, that this I think what it's showing is a certain level of maturity within their operations. There's the fact that we've already seen, I think, all three of the use cases they're talking about, the one they've done here and the two more they're going to be writing articles on. It says stay tuned in the days to come. There's two more. All of those are things that we've already seen in the news, their customers implementing on their platform. So the fact that they're eating their dog food and that they're presenting in such detail and how their methodology, I can expect that for a lot of their customers, this is going to become quite turnkey quite quickly.
Yeah.
So
I'd say
that's something to just hold on to. Even if you're an Azure shop on Microsoft, you can say, look at the maturity of the environment. Look at what Amazon's doing with
and the work, the writing they did on. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Adam. Are you done?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, thanks.
The writing they did on how they fight hallucinations and stuff was really great. Just again, best practice stuff right now because there isn't any real science around this, but that's the best you've got. So at least you've got some arrows in your quiver to say, oh, okay, I can use these techniques. And as Luda said, they're quite general. They're not specific to this use case. So a lot of good stuff, definitely good for developers. And I would say, important, good weekend read for the AI leader.
So it sounds like we've got important here, and kudos to Amazon. They've also shared, Jassy, a few days ago that I was 4,500 years of software coding time, Java upgrade. So I think they're doing a great job documenting this. And I can also feel 3 or 4 of the Amazon product managers behind us who wrote 7 and 10-page detailed memos so people know the internal process here. So important for now. Next one, Ankash, please.
Okay, the next one comes from IBM, and this one talks about how IBM is unveiling next-gen AI chips at Hot Chips 2024.
Wow. So, Adam, IBM in the chip business. Do we believe them?
Yeah, I rated this as optional. I think it was a natural extension of what they're already doing on these Z systems, right? So it's they're basically the mainframes that they're still running and getting more operational capacity on those and more capability to actually run some Gen AI on those platforms. But it's really just more speeds and feeds and processing capabilities for the things they already have out there. So.
Agreed. Everybody's getting into the hardware business, which is logical from their perspective, even just given the chip shortage. And as Adam pointed out, for IBM, man, if anybody ever told you in, 1964, when the first 360 came out, that they would still be enhancing and making money off it in 2024, 60 years, right? Pretty good run.
Yeah, I had a buddy of mine, I won't name the company, was a really top sales rep, and that company used Lotus Notes as the internal email system. And they just moved to Outlook about a year ago. And I couldn't believe it. It just shows that the tails of some of these things are quite long. So optional for now. Next one, Ankash.
Okay, the next one comes from an LLM provider, Aleph Alpha. They have launched Faria 1 LLM. And the good thing about this one is that this is compliant with EU regulations.
What'd you think, Luda? This is one of the vendors that we do in our vendor monitoring service. What'd you think of them?
Yeah, optional, but interesting, right? So the company raised 500 million just in June or July. So they have money, and a large portion of it is allocated to research. And this is coming from the research side. So interesting about this model, it has 3 languages it was very well trained on. German, Spanish, and French. And it also has 2 specific vertical domains that it was trained on, engineering and something else. But it is a very long article, very transparent. It's amazing how detailed they went on selecting certain parameters, this parameter versus that parameter. They did research and compared how the parameters affected performance or whatever the thing in question. It is, and if for people who are looking at which LLM is better for which purpose, this is a very interesting article to look at. So, but optional, you can't expect AI leader to go through all of this detail.
Yeah, I agree. It's an open source model too. It's not in the top tier foundation models, at least doesn't appear to be. It's more in the 7 billion category as opposed to the 400 to a trillion big models that we talk about, the frontier models. But to Luda's point, this is what we said from the beginning. Europe's going to be important, and European companies are going to be important because they're going to do exactly this. They're going to certify against EU regulations. That's going to be a big plus for them. And I think they're going to make their mark. I think there's room for Mistral and these folks at Aleph Alpha. So they're going to do fine, I think. And again, like the other article from Amazon, incredible detail, right down to the tuning algorithms they use and the parameter structures and the training data, incredible detail. So interesting for developers of large language models, but way too much low-level detail for AI leaders. And again, if you're in Europe, this is important, this maybe even essential if you're in Europe, just to keep track of this, but it's a product announcement at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's one interesting thing, Tim, to think through how the market in Europe might develop here. I mean, clearly these are important purchase criteria for European countries. And if this always has Mistral and Alpha on it, and Azure and others are trying to sneak in there, that may really change what the market share looks like in Europe.
Yeah, so Paul, I think at the end of the day, the big guys will end up being distributors. I think it will be hard for them to buy these companies because of the sovereign issues, the sovereign state issues, but maybe they even buy them. But I think more likely they'll just make sure, like they're already distributors of Mistral for sure. I don't know what the distribution scheme is for Aleph Alpha. The Mistral you can get on AWS, you can get on Azure. I think they're going to have a tough time. They're trying, what's their names? OpenAI, incorporated in Ireland, and they're going to do all sorts of things to try and compete over time. But I think they're going to struggle.
Yeah.
Great. Well, that's optional for now. And folks,
Paul, Paul, one thing I wanted to add there is Aleph Alpha is a German company, and the other thing it said it's really suitable for is for automotive was the other one.
Engineering and automotive.
And so when I start thinking about robotics and automation and having small open source models that are fluent in German and purpose built for automotive in Germany, you can kind of see maybe what sort of markets they might be going after.
Yeah.
Automotive and engineering sort of paints a picture there in Germany, doesn't it?
A great observation. So thank you, Adam. Optional for now. And folks online, good morning, good evening. Feel free to send in comments and like us on YouTube, and let us know what your ratings are, and if you agree or disagree with our analysts. Next article, please, Akash.
Okay, the next one that we have comes from Meta, and it talks about Sapiens, that comes from Meta Reality Labs, and it's a foundation for human vision models.
Tim, do we care about this article?
we care about it, but it's optional. You know, it's like 2 paragraphs effectively, but boy, you can almost say, let's make it important because it's so quick and so mind-blowing.
It's so cool.
It's just, you know, wow. That's the only thing you can say after seeing this stuff is wow. But it's a research thing right now. We don't know how long it will be before it comes to the mainstream, but my guess is not long. We don't know how expensive it is. There's all sorts of issues. It's just an announcement from Meta Labs. But again, Meta is leading the field, in my opinion, at pushing the research envelope and getting this kind of stuff out there. It'll be really interesting to see if Meta ends up getting something out in the marketplace before Sora from OpenAI. Because this is really astonishing. The ability of this stuff to, it's just astonishing.
It's interesting, Tim. One, if you think about the roadmap of Meta, they've got like their B2C Facebook, Instagram play, and then they're just pushing all these open source models out there, kind of general purpose. They don't have to deal with all the enterprise complexity stuff that an OpenAI is got to do. So it's kind of interesting.
Well, you know, if you think about it, most people are familiar with financial services at a broad level. So the issue here, we're in the state where you're a trader, okay? You're a hedge fund, right? And are you going to create a unique trading platform that makes you a better trader? That's Meta's approach, right? We don't care about the platform. We just care that we're going to use it to make better social media platform because that's where we make our money. We're basically like the stock traders saying, yeah, we don't care if we trade, we sell our trading system because we're just trading and making money, as opposed to the brokers who sell the trading systems because they're selling it to other people. So there's 2 different paths you can take here. And Meta's definitely taking the, yeah, we don't care about the platforms, these large language models and things, because that's not where we make our money.
Yeah, it's really, really fascinating. Great. So optional for now, last article on Kaj.
Okay, the last one that we have comes from A16Z, and it talks about a general purpose robotics platform.
So I think, Adam, you've got assignment on this, but I know Luda's always got some strong views on robotics. So let's start with Adam.
Yeah, look, if it's a fairly long article, and I will say it's information dense. There's a lot in here about robotics, the history of robotics, the ongoing progress, the opportunities to build. Mostly, though, the premise, which is up front, is that basically, as we start moving horizontal with robotic intelligence, as we start having standards, and we have, as they say, a move towards generality, that it's going to accelerate development in the ecosystem, which is, I think, pretty apparent, frankly. So I rated it as optional. If it were going to be important, it would be because someone was trying to get up to speed on what's going on in the robotics landscape, and they want sort of one information dense article that has a bunch of details to it, covering a lot of sort of a summarization in a pretty good detail. But I gave it an optional rating.
Luda, do you agree or?
Yeah, I guess. I actually think that this is a well thought. So for our audience, like AI executives shouldn't really read this unless they're in robotics, right? But the field is going forward dramatically, right? This article talks about how all the pieces that are required are being nurtured into this state when you can take them horizontally and then deliver that into a special robot with specific physical characteristics. So this hasn't ever happened before, right? All the robotics fields always struggled because they had to build it in the vertical manner for the robot to work, right? So now there are all these pieces enabling that propagation. So I just think that we haven't seen anything yet in robotics. It's kind of like emerging. So, but you can't expect a regular AI, to read this. They're not interested. So optional, unfortunately.
But that would mean that we wouldn't make it essential, right? We couldn't expect them to read it. It means we couldn't make it essential, but there could still be a case therefore important and not expect them to read it. I think that's fair.
Yeah, so if we put it important, I would say it is very, for all the people in automotive, industrial processes, that there's lots of them, right? They need to be aware that this field is swelling. There will be robots everywhere.
Great. So it sounds like importance. And Tim, I think it's still breathtaking that all the different vectors of innovation. We just saw Sapiens, we just saw coding. Now we've got, robotics. It really is an explosion on all these different opportunity frontiers.
I can go with important, but I will say this. Remember, A to Z, this is written by a venture capitalist. They're always talking their book, right? And so you can see, for a lesson again in venture capital investing, you can see there's a little bit of a backlash, a little worry about generative AI platforms and are they ever going to make money? We even had that mentioned in one of the articles today. And now robotics is going to be the next big thing. So they're trying to pump up robotics so they can get an investment early. And remember, these guys, again, I love them to death at certain levels. They create a lot of innovation in the economy and they start a lot of companies, which do a lot of great things. But they're also P.T. Barnums. They are, I get in early, I get out early, I make money even if the market doesn't do so well. So, you can sort of see a little bit of that going on here. And I could argue with some of the basic premises here. There is no proof yet that we will get to generalized robotics through only machine learning. That has always been the big debate when you get into the real world. And it's been known for years. I mean, I was around when Shaky the Robot, which was the first attempt to really get a robot to be able to navigate in the real world. And everybody discovered, holy crap, this is really hard. And, it kind of reflects anatomy. If you look at the brain, the cortex is a tiny part of it, which does all the real executive function, the real thinking ego stuff. And most of the brain is all this low level, don't touch the hot stove stuff.
Survival stuff, yeah.
Because it takes a lot to get through the world. So the argument is scale of these models. If you get enough data, everything gets solved. And that could be right. One of my one-liners that I tell all the time is, I talk about, top-down thinking, the old style symbolic reasoning AI, and bottom-up neuronal activity, the sort of machine learning stuff. You get a long ways going bottom up. It's just amazing how far you can get. Yeah. And so I can't say it won't happen, but I could easily debate the other side of this article. But I think it's good reading.
Yeah.
Good reading. We'll leave it at
Go ahead. Okay, so another thing that the article talks about that is very important is the piece about understanding the environment. This has been actually a very difficult thing for robots, right?
Yeah.
They had to be very, very specific to their application.
Right.
These days, right, with GenAI, we have really kind of raised to the bar, right, to get that models or these models defined, and Figure and the like are using them successfully.
I show the Figure demo once a week at least to people. Show them how amazing it is. But on the other side, again, look at Tesla. Okay, read the exposés of their crashes. It's just really hard to navigate the real world, and one mistake can be really, really important. So it's just another level of problem.
Right. The article points out that this is a vertical that is developing by itself. They are talking about the robotics in factories to help retirees. By the way, Kevin's point is well put. He's saying that, there is a market demand. People will be retiring en masse, and they will have to have something. And these robots with specific functions, bring me a cup of water, will be out there. We have enough to get.
Oh yeah, no, I think this is a killer application. I've wanted to start a company in this.
Yeah, same
in many ways, because not get me a glass of water, but get me to the bathroom at 2 a.m. back without falling, because that's the number one problem, really. And you can imagine a robot pretty soon that would be good enough to do that. It doesn't have to be a Figure 1 kind of super unbelievable robot even. Just has to be good enough not to kill the person getting back and forth to the bathroom.
So
Yeah.
our friends, so for our we're settling on a port. It sounds like from the article from our friends at Adreessen, we're noting that Adreessen is selling its book. They've got some great research, and we also remember they put in
They write well. Yeah.
What's that?
They write well.
They write well, and they just put in $6 million into a company called HumanX, which is doing massive AI trade shows, which will also be presumably promoting their vendor companies here. So, Akash, you have the summary. I think you do. On a Tuesday, we had 2 important articles for our AI leaders. And we welcome everyone. Also, check online in a day or so on an absolutely fabulous learning lab we had last night from David Howard from Cox Automotive, who went through a approach on coming up with questions that were company specific or not benchmark specific, and then having 4 models grade each other and come up with I thought it was a reasonable approach. I mean, Tim and Adam, what'd you think of David's approach?
I thought it was great. Yeah. Very good. I'm all for quantitative approaches. You can argue at some of the edge things that he did and how generalizable is it, but actually I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, and the headline was that the Claude Anthropic's model Claude Sonnet version, AWS beat OpenAI in his particular test. So certainly notable. And yet another data point that Claude is really making a lot of progress out there. So thanks, everyone, for a fabulous discussion. We'll continue the discussion online, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.